For decades, people who have never met, from different countries, different ages, different backgrounds, have described the same figure. A tall man in a wide-brimmed hat, a long coat, no face. Some see him in their homes, some see him watching from a distance, and some don't realize they've seen him until it's too late. Tonight, you're about to hear 3 encounters with the Hat Man and the disturbing pattern that connects them. The Hat Man doesn't appear to everyone who can't sleep. He only comes when your body is exhausted and your mind refuses to shut off. That's when he notices you. The first night without sleep. I hadn't slept in 3 days. Not real sleep, just drifting, falling for a few seconds, then snapping awake like I'd forgotten something important. I tried everything. Dark room, no phone, white noise. Eventually, I took something meant to help me rest, something ordinary, something people don't think twice about. I lay down, waiting for relief. Instead, the room went quiet in a way that felt intentional. The shape in the corner. That's when I saw him, a tall figure standing where the wall met the ceiling's shadow. He wore a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat that absorbed the darkness around him. He wasn't sharp. He looked slightly delayed, like my eyes were seeing him a fraction of a second before my brain agreed. I blinked. He stayed. Not a dream. I could move. That's how I knew this wasn't sleep paralysis. I sat up, heart pounding, and the figure tilted, not turning his head, just shifting his attention toward me. No face, just a deeper black where one should be. The air felt thick, like breathing through fabric. And then I understood something I wish I hadn't. The Hat Man wasn't standing in my room. He was standing at the edge of it. The side effects no one talks about. After that night, strange things started happening. Shadows lagged behind moving objects. Corners looked deeper than they should. My reflection sometimes blinked late, and every time I tried to sleep, I felt him arrive before I saw him, like pressure, like awareness, like something checking to see if I was still here. Why the Hat Man appears. He doesn't come because you're weak. He comes because you're too awake. Somewhere between rest and consciousness, there's a thin place, a gap where the brain fills in what it can't explain. That's when the Hat Man waits, not to hurt you, to observe what happens when your mind opens the door on its own. The night he got closer. On the 4th night, he wasn't in the corner. He stood near the bed. The room felt tilted, like gravity had picked a side. I noticed details I hadn't before. His hat wasn't sitting on his head. It hovered, slightly detached, like the idea of a hat. That's when I realized something terrifying. The Hat Man wasn't solid. He was a placeholder. What he's really watching for. He waits to see if you'll finish forming him, if you'll give him eyes, a mouth, meaning. The longer you stare, the clearer he becomes, and the clearer he becomes, the harder it is to tell which one of you is imagining the other. The morning after. When the sun finally came up, he faded, not vanished, faded, like a memory you're not supposed to keep. I felt drained, hollow, like something had checked me for cracks. I told myself it was exhaustion, that I'd pushed my body too far, that once I rested, he'd be gone for good. I was wrong. The last thing he does. The Hat Man doesn't stay forever. He leaves you with something instead, a sense that the world is thinner than it looks, that if you get too tired again, if you drift just a little too far, he'll be right there. Not in the corner, not by the bed, but inside the place where sleep is supposed to protect you, waiting. Everyone saw the Hat Man, but at different times. The first report came in at 11:42 p.m. I didn't think much of it. I worked overnight dispatch for a private security company, and people called about shadows all the time, reflections, coat racks, their own paranoia. The caller's voice was calm, too calm. "There's a man outside my window," he said. "He's wearing a hat." The problem with the description. When I asked for details, the caller paused. "I can't describe his face," he said, "because there isn't one." That should have been the end of it. But then the calls started stacking. Different buildings, different floors, same description. A tall figure, wide-brimmed hat, long coat, standing still, always watching. The pattern no one noticed. Here's what made it strange. No two people saw him at the same time. One tenant would call at 11:42, another at 11:51, another just after midnight. But when we checked security footage later, the timestamps didn't match the reports. The Hat Man appeared in multiple places, all at the same minute. The first missing person. At 1:17 a.m., a caller whispered into the phone, "He's inside now." I asked where. "In the hallway," she said, "but he's not walking. He's just between steps." The line went dead. When responders arrived, her apartment was empty. No signs of a struggle, just one strange detail. Her front door was open, and her hallway lights were all on. The video we weren't supposed to see. The building manager sent over the security footage the next morning. We watched it in silence. The Hat Man didn't move like a person. He appeared one frame closer, then another, then another. No walking animation, no motion blur, just distance removed, like reality itself was skipping to keep up with him. The second night. The next night, the calls doubled. People didn't sound scared anymore. They sounded confused. "He's standing where I was just standing," one man said. Another caller asked, "Why does he feel familiar?" That question made my stomach drop because I knew the answer. What the Hat Man copies. He isn't watching you. He's learning how to be you. The Hat Man studies posture, spacing, the way people pause before moving. That's why he stands still. That's why he waits. He's buffering. When I finally saw him. At 3:03 a.m., my computer screen went dark. The reflection stared back at me. A tall shape behind my chair. Wide-brimmed hat, long coat. I didn't turn around because I noticed something worse. My reflection blinked. I didn't. The final report. The last call came from my own extension. My voice spoke calmly through the headset. "He's ready now," it said. "Thank you for helping." The security footage from that night ends with one final frame. The Hat Man sitting at my desk, wearing my badge, facing the phone, waiting for the next call. Why I'm posting this. People still report seeing him, but now the descriptions have changed. He stands with his weight on one leg. He tilts his head when listening, and sometimes he answers the phone. If you ever see a tall man in a hat standing still for no reason, don't watch him, because he's practicing.
No one remembers meeting the Hat Man. The strangest thing about the Hat Man isn't seeing him, it's forgetting when it happened. Everyone I interviewed remembered the same details: the hat, the coat, the height. But no one could remember how the encounter ended. There was always a blank space. The first interview. I started noticing the pattern while working at a memory clinic. Patients came in complaining about small gaps, missing minutes, misplaced objects, conversations they didn't remember having. Routine stuff. Until one man said something that made me stop taking notes. "I think someone borrowed my evening," he said. When I asked him what he meant, he hesitated. "There was a man," he said slowly. "He was dressed like he didn't belong to any decade." The shared description. Over the next few weeks, the same description kept appearing. A tall man in a wide-brimmed hat, a long coat that didn't move when he walked, a face no one could describe. Patients didn't report fear, they reported certainty, like they had met someone important and lost the memory of why. The gap. Every patient had the same blank spot, exactly 7 minutes. Not before the sighting, not after, during. 7 minutes that their minds refused to fill in. One woman began crying when I showed her a clock. "That's how long he needs," she whispered. The recording. We began recording sessions. Most were normal, but one video stood out. A patient froze mid-sentence. Her eyes shifted slightly to the left. Then she smiled. "Please stop asking about him," she said. Her voice wasn't hers. When she snapped out of it, she didn't remember speaking. What the Hat Man takes. He doesn't steal memories, he edits them. He removes himself from the story so you'll never know what you agreed to. That's why people don't panic. That's why they don't run. You can't fear what you can't recall. The appointment I don't remember scheduling. One night, I found a name on my calendar. No notes, no referral, just a time. 11:11 p.m. I almost canceled. I'm glad I didn't. The man in the chair. He was already seated when I entered the room. Tall, wide-brimmed hat resting in his lap, long coat draped neatly around him. He looked polite. "I believe you've been studying me," he said. I don't remember sitting down. I don't remember answering his questions, but I do remember the last thing he said. The agreement. "You won't remember this," he told me calmly. "You'll stop looking." "And in exchange?" I asked. He smiled just slightly. "You'll get your 7 minutes back." The file I found this morning. I don't remember writing this report, but it was on my desk when I arrived, marked completed. There's a note at the bottom, written in my handwriting. "Do not pursue further. He keeps his promises." And for the first time in months, I don't feel like anything is missing.